Imagine, if you will, a hardworking, poor, and underprivileged man working on a farm trying to provide for his family. Now imagine 96 million of them, amounting to 80 of a nation's entire population. And to make it even worse, the more privileged, rich folk enjoying parties and buying expensive, luxurious things, and not knowing what the poor are going through. Well, enter the 1700s France. You see, the colonies had just declared their independence, straying away from the medieval ruling variant. France, their neighbor, was still following that same way of leadership, a triangular-shaped hierarchy, with the king at the top, the nobles and priests under him, and the backbones of it all, the peasants and slaves. But before we get too into this, we need to know the history of it all. To summarize it, here are the chain of events that sparked the revolution. The French leadership had completely forgotten about population because they were far from the average slums, resting in Paris, throwing parties, and the sorts of stuff leaders from that era did. Another thing to add was that the peasants, were heavily taxed on even the most basic goods. Things started to get even worse when the colonies declared their independence. The people of France saw how the now Americans strayed away from the traditional hierarchy. That was the ruling system of France at that time. It was time for a change. France's whole financial system wasn't going too well. You see, back in 1778, when the French had but tons of money, they decided to declare war against the Brits. A war that they later lost, putting them in huge financial debt, allowing for the financial crisis of 1786 and then later the Revolution. The then King of France, Louis, had just passed away, giving his throne to his son, Louis XV. Coming into his dictatorship, he aided the colonies in their independence via loans. Loans that they would never pay back. Due to this, the king had to heavily tax different areas of income. The taxes became so apparent that they were put on the normal list of things. The people were of course furious, especially when it came to taxing bread. The royals had entire bread factories in their homes. A bit of an exaggeration, but you get what I mean. Whilst the poor were left out of their only food source, and now they were really starving. Then they started to protest, took to their streets and demanded change. Their heroism was quickly met by the royal military in efforts to stop them, but no efforts availed. French liberalists took to the streets, taking over an abandoned building, which they declared their parliament. This building was later shut down by the king, but they just found another one, and so on and so forth. And so, the French Revolution began. But that is for another day.